if the world is a Metzias. So we start explaining that because because Hashem shows the world, the fact that Hashem shows the world, that itself is shows on a connection that Hashem has with the world that goes in a very high level, because because when there's bechira, when there's choice, so even though world has to do with gvul and limitations and concealment and symptom, but when there's a level of choosing over there, that level of choosing, both gvul and bli gvul are the same. And the same thing, Gilui and Helam, Tzimtzum, and so on. These are all equal, so therefore they could be included one in together with the other. So now he's going to explain this, how this we see this in actuality in the concept of the world. So line 14, fourth page of the copies, page Ches. The idea behind this is the though the idea of the believable is not something that is visible and revealed in the world. Like we mentioned earlier, that it says that he chose his world. What's it mean? He chose his world. The world is Melashon Hel. It's from the word concealment. That is the idea of a natural way how Hashem runs and deals with the world. The word teva is from the word drown. From the expression that's used in Megillus Eicha concerning the gates of the Beis Hamikdash, that the gates were swallowed up, drowned, sunken into the ground. So even though what we see is concealment, not revelation, not believable, but through meditating, through thinking deeply, we can reach and to comprehend the infinite aspect of the world, the joining of the believable, even though there's the concealment of the world. How does one attain that? What type of meditation does it take? So thinking into the hosts of heaven. When you look at the sun, the moon, the stars, the very earth itself, these are as strong as the day they were created. The fact that something can exist in its full strength without diminishing whatsoever. So with this aspect that didn't diminish in its strength, it appears from that the infinite aspect of the natural way of running the world. Anything that has a boundary to it needs to have something of loss. It needs to degrade. Like the expression used in the Bachai Shatimnik Masculine Yabish, a baby. From the moment it's born, it begins to dry up, meaning it begins its process of degrading and going on to passing away from this world. That is by tzva ha'aretz. That is by human beings, animals, plants, etc., etc. But when we look at another part of the natural phenomena, you look at tzva hashamayim, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, etc. He sees something that goes counter to that natural state. He sees something that goes counter to nature. Since he sees that the hosts of heaven are as strong as the day they were created, I feel in also I have say this top of page test. There is no beginning even of loss and degrading. With this, it's visible, it's seen, that there's in it a nature of bleedful, of something being unbounded. meaning that there is the meshing of both these things together, gvul and bli gvul, elam and gilui, tzimtzum and gilui, etc. But here we're talking about something very unusual. We're saying a person with his intellect should be able to comprehend the infinite. Infinite is something seemingly that human intellect cannot grasp. Even though a person cannot grasp the idea of the infinite, as much as he will imagine within himself the idea of the everlasting nature of things, how something can be forever. He'll try to picture forever in his mind. As much as he tries picturing uh, infinity in his mind, everlasting in his mind, forever in his mind, still limited by because anything a person comprehends is only limited and bounded. Became still in all, despite the fact that the human mind cannot contain the idea of infinity. Since he sees how the hosts of heaven are as strong as the day as they were created, with this he sees a matter that without boundary, like was mentioned earlier. So therefore, the person is able to recognize through his bonus in the world bleak. Yesodam is even more so through recognized in nature, in the world, in concealment, in gvul, through recognizing bleak. Not only does he come to recognize bleakvul, but he comes to recognize something even higher than bleak. But he comes to the recognition she'inyan and nimshach mebchina shalamayla gam inyan hableak. Where is there such an idea possible? How is it possible that bleakvul should enmesh itself, should come down into gvul? That must be thanks to something that's even higher than bleak. So that should be able to be a joint of the unbounded and the limited. Then the limitations of nature itself will be something without end that's beyond nature. This is only a result of the fact that Hashem's very essence, nothing is impossible for him. It's or a different way of maybe translating this more literally. It's impossible to say impossible about it. That by Hashem, it's beyond both limitation and being unlimited, because he's beyond both of those things. He's able to join them together in the gvul of the world, in the concealment and limitation of the world. You could have the revelation, the light, the bleak gvul that's higher in the world, and they're both joined together, even though they're opposites, because Hashem is beyond gvul and beyond bleak. This is going to be the explanation of the first section of that Maimer Chazal about what was going on at the beginning of creation. This is what it means when the Chazal say that when Hashem shows his world, it was Bechira in his world, because of his choice in this world. So then the limited thing manifested in it and came about in such a way as it is from the level of Hashem's very essence of capability that we said, in the level of Yecholos, the level that's beyond the deeper level of the Eretz Tzimtzum, where he's capable to go on the side of Gvul, he's capable to go on the side of Bleak Gvul. That type of capability to go in both directions is the capability itself has no distinction between Gvul and Bleak Gvul. Therefore, you could have, because this is a Gvul Ayolama, this is a world that's coming from Bechira, meaning it's world that's coming out of, and as it's from the perspective of Yecholas Atzmas, where bleak wool and wool share space together. Chen yesh b'zeh gam inyan ha-bleak wool. Therefore, the gvul of our world, Mishabachar Bailamai, has also the unbounded, the unlimited, the chibur gvul ubleak wool, the joining of the limited and the unlimited. Now the Rebbe is going to bring down where we see this even in Seder Ishtalshlus, that not just in the chibur of Gvul and Bligvul in our world, but even in the source of our world. Line 21, page 5. This is what he explains in the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe from 1940 that I mentioned earlier. The everlasting nature of the fact that there is such a thing as being forever and everlasting, like we said, that there is to be found in Tzva Shemayim, in the hosts of heavens, like the planets, the moons, the stars, etc. So that comes from the line of the Kav. We know after there was the Tzimtzum Rishon removing all the light that filled all space, a very thin line came down. Although it's a very narrow, short, and limited line. Why is that so? Because the kav is coming after the tzimtzum. Before the tzimtzum, there were no constrictions. There was no narrowness. There was no short. All possible space was filled with the stuff. The whole entire point of the kav is after the tzimtzum, you bring down a limited form of divine light and energy. Kol makom still in all. This kav is the way it is. It's the way that after the tzimtzum, it comes down from the great eagle that is before the tzimtzum. In other words, the kav is not a new light, but it's joined with the Eires of Shekhinah Tzimtzum. It's acting as a channel of the light of the Eires of before the Tzimtzum. Because the line on itself, since it's after the Tzimtzum, it's not possible to have a revelation from it. Because there was a Tzimtzum, there was a cutoff. Just like you can't have light without the sun that the light is connected to. If you block the sun from the light, you're not going to have any light revealed. The same thing, the kav, if it's just coming post tzimtzum, it's only coming out of that emptiness, so then you can't have any revelation from it. And not only can, and how much more so, Alachas kam v'kama in abriya, how much more so you can't have the idea of creation, because creation, we said, is only a result of the level of Hashem's being, coming from his very being, and therefore he can create a world that is yesh me'ayin. So obviously, we can't say that the kav is just created in a vacuum. Rather, Ella, top of page Yud, only after it comes down in this narrow, short line, unlimited line, that comes down after the tzimtzum, it comes down from the infinite light that's before the tzimtzum. Therefore, it can have gilui and it can create, and that's why the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimer that the idea of nitzchius, everlasting nature, which is a believable thing, comes from the Oira Kav, because that's what is able, because of its connection with the Oira of Shefnat Tzimtzum, it's able to bring that into the world. And even higher is to be found in the Kav, not just the believable of the Oira of Shefnat Tzimtzum, but the Yisayim is even more so, like was mentioned earlier, so that they should be able to be the joining between full and believable. which we find in our world, and also to a certain degree we find in the Kav. How is that possible? It's not just if the Kav was connected to the bleak wool, that's not enough. It's only from the level that's beyond any impossibility. That's beyond the two lines of wool and bleak wool that joins them together. So we must say that the Kav, which joins and is a place where the wool and bleak wool join, has in it and is connected not just to the Oina Sophluknat Simtsum, not just to the Oina bleak wool, but all the way to the level of Nimna Nimnois, Yichoilas Atzmus, the capability that's higher than bleak wool, that's able to join both of them together. Any questions before we go? Line 7. In addition to the idea that when Hashem chose his world, the first part of that Maimer Chazal, that when Hashem chose the world, so then he established in it heads of months and heads of years. That was Tishrei. Second half of that Maimer Chazal is that after, or in addition to that, there's also the idea when Hashem chose Yaakov and his children, he established a head of month of redemption. So what is this coming to add over the joining of bleak wool and wool that we already see from the beginning of creation in the natural, non-miraculous running of the world, in the Anhagas HaTeva, that we already see? What is now being added? Line 10, the idea behind this is Yaakov and his children, they indicate the level that's infinite, that's beyond the world. Because the Jewish people are called children for Hashem. Like it says, B'ni B'chari Yisrael, my son, my firstborn Yid, Bonim Atem Lavai Lekechem, you are children for Hashem, your God. These are the two psukim that the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya in Perek Beis when he tries to explain how the Yid comes from Hashem like a child comes from his father's brain and essence. So, what is this? The idea of Eden being called Bonim have to do with the idea that it's bleak wool that's beyond the world. Though the description children indicates a level that has an association with Seder Ishtalshlos, concerning a level that's completely higher than Seder Ishtalshlos, it says he doesn't even have a son, he doesn't have a brother. So we see the idea of being called children is something that seemingly only indicates our relationship to Hashem on a Seder Ishtalshlos level. So the Rebbe says, Ishtalshlos does not rule out bleak wool. Aval be Ishtalshlos guf, but in Seder Ishtalshlos itself, Harezi Ishtalshlos shall bleak wool is still a chain descent that has to do with the infinite. Shalamayla Mikol in Yone Abriya, that's beyond all matters of creation. Shekol in Yone Habriya Heim Gvul, all matters of creation are bounded and limited. But Shamas Yisrael and bleak wool, but Shamas Yisrael have no limitation, and that is the idea of children. What's unique about being called children? And this is hinted in the examination of the exactness of the expression when Hashem chose Yaakov and his children. When the Chazal talk about the creation of the world, they say the world was created for Yisrael. It doesn't say the world was created for Yisrael and his children, for Yaakov and his children. Could have said the same thing over here. The Medrash could have said, when Hashem chose his world, so and so. Hashem chose Yisrael, so and so. But that's not what it says. The Medrash uses a different term. The Chazal uses a different term. Yeshubachar b'Yaakov ubono. What is he trying to hint with the word Yaakov and his children? With this word and his children, the Chazal are hinting to the capability, the power of procreation, the power of birth that there's in the Yidden Shu Koyach Ein Sof, and the power of procreation, the power of birth is the power of the infinite. Before, explained in the Maimer titled Samach the Samach of the Rebbe Rashab, that was said by his son's marriage. Become Mekoimus, and it's explained also in different places. The power of birth and procreation is only by the power of the infinite, because the power of birth is something that has in it the infinite as well, because it can procreate and procreate further, and from that, the next generation and next generation, no end. How can it be such an infinite thing? This is only because the infinite of Hashem. This power of procreation is not found in spiritual levels, and it's not even found in Malachim. Malachim, as high as they are, they do not procreate. Specifically in Neshamas Yisrael down here below. Similar to another thing that we find a difference down here below, there's going to quote from Tanya, the heavens, or even the physical sky, versus the physical earth. It's explained also in the well-known letter of the Alter Rebbe, the end of Tanya. Siman Chov, epistle number 20, top of page Yud Aleph, concerning the power of growth of plants, vegetation being able to grow. That's found specifically down here below in the lowest of the four elements, the element of earth, the physical element of earth. This power of growth is what Hashem's placed in the earth, the statement, the utterance, the earth should give forth, a covering of grass, etc. So we see that specifically down here in the lowest level, there is the growth. The same thing at the lowest level, seemingly in the Neshamas Yisrael, there's the power of giving birth that's not to be found in Malachim, meaning there's a power of the Ein Sof. There's the power of the Bligvul. So let's now conclude the whole picture, just like he did this with his world, so he did the other with Yaakov Abana, line 3. In a change in his Barleil, just like was explained previously. The idea that when Hashem chose his world, though his world is an idea of boundaries, still in all, because of Hashem's choosing this world, yes, the belief will, it also has the idea of the unbounded. So too, it's concerning when he chose Yaakov and his children, though on their own they are without boundaries, because they have this power of the Ein Sof in procreation. But what did we say the power of Bechira does? Since in the level of Bechira, since in the level of free choice, Gvul and Bli Gvul exist together. So, just like we said, Hashem's Gvul in the creation of the world, in Olam, contains in it also Bli Gvul. The same thing in the Bli Gvul of Yaakov's children, in the power of the infinite that's to be found in Neshamas Yisrael. Paul Malkim, line 8, still a norm, it's Abchiras, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bahem, because of Hashem's choice in the Yidden. So in Gam B'Gvul, Lamata Ba'olam, they find themselves also in a bounded way down here below in this world. Chibur, the Bli Gvul, Gvul, the joining of the unbounded and the bounded. They can also operate and they also connect with the limitations and the Gvul of this world. They are not inconsistent with the Gvul of this world. Therefore, when Hashem chose Yaakov and his sons, he established in it a head of month of redemption. Redemption, Geula, spans both the both levels of the binary, on and off, Helam and Gilui, Gvul and Bligvul, Tzimtzum and Gilui, etc. How? So he says, the very fact that you're saying redemption, you have to be redeemed from something. You're being redeemed from something. That means that there is a state of exile, of negative, of gvul, of concealment that you have to be redeemed from. The key, since we are found in a world that is bounded and limited, that very idea that Neshamas Yisrael exists in the physical world, that itself is considered for the Neshama a great descent, a Yerida. It's a state of exile. It left its holiest places. It's a state of enslavement. Therefore, there's a need of a head of month of redemption. That the Yidden have to leave and go out of the enslavement to redemption. And how does that take place? How do you go out of the entrapments, the limitations of this physical world, that the world itself is in a state of gullus, state of enslavement, a state of gvul, etc. Through the miraculous way that Hashem runs the world, that's beyond the natural way. That miraculous way brings about something that is even the higher and meshes the two, the infinite with the finite that we find ourselves. And from this, the Rebbe is going to bring it back to the idea of the Rabbi Yitzchak that we were speaking about before, about beginning the Torah with Achodesh Hazalachem, and really Achodesh Hazalachem and Bereshit are two opposite things. Achodesh Hazalachem is the level that is something above and beyond, and Bereshit is about creation. Seemingly, there are two extremes that really have no place of meeting. Based on this, that it's about in the world and in Gvul, or bringing together the Bligvul, we can understand how you go from saying, well, the Torah should have started with Achodesh, but really it started because of Bereshis, as we will explain the connection with Shem tomorrow. Any questions?